The Halo universe is filled with wonder, mystery, and fascinating discoveries around every corner. With so much to explore, four friends decided it was about time that they booted up their consoles and discussed this universe that has grabbed their attention since childhood. JumperScape Audio kindly welcomes you to join them in the library.
Everybody, welcome back to The Library, the show where we talk about Halo lore. And today we are, of course, talking about Halo lore. That's pretty much all that we do, unless, of course, we go against that and we talk about things that have nothing to do with it, because that occasionally happens from time to time. But today we're going real deep into it. Real deep. And by real deep, I mean I pulled a dude. I found him. Say hi, Mr. Forbeck.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
We're fantastic. Connor, how are you specifically?
I'm doing great.
That's great.
A little stuffy, but I'm good.
It's the ragweed.
Tis the season.
It is,
seriously,
unfortunately.
I'm actually upset. I'm in this current season right now where I got a cold for maybe 3 days from being in Seattle for HCS. And now there's just this cough that won't leave. Occasionally it's just gone. Like right now, don't feel it. But I know in like an hour, I'm going to be just chilling. All of a sudden, I'm going to have to get into a coughing fit. Or now I've cursed it and it'll happen in the next 5 minutes. Who knows?
Are you just feeling allergies for the first time in your life?
Feels like
Is that what that does?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. What are you singing?
Nothing.
So, for those of you who are uninitiated or haven't listened to this show ever or haven't even interacted with
How
Halo
dare
once in
you.
your life, then you're missing out on some solid content, because Mr. Forbeck here, fantastic author of New Blood, Bad Blood, Legacy of Onyx, and also helped out with Lessons Learned, which I think many need to actually go into. I think a lot of people miss on those short stories, and they're actually really good. But there's much to go into on various fronts on these stories, but we do not have time to go into every single one. So I think I'm just addressing this ahead of time because I know we're going to get messages about it. And Mr. Forbeck, we're probably going to need to pull you back in at some point in the future to cover your novels.
Sure.
Cool. Sounds great. That was live. I did not
Sure.
ask beforehand. So this is perfect. So there's a couple things to go into today, because today we're originally going to go into the created and the assembly and talk about Cortana, the domain, all these various things that are rather interesting, but to many are utterly confusing because it's a lot to explore and a lot to go into. So on that topic, I mostly wanted to talk pretty much created exclusively. And get your thoughts, especially Forbeck, when we get to the topic. But
You can call me Matt. It's perfectly fine.
okay, I will call you that. I'm sorry, it's just your last name is cool. I'm not gonna lie.
I like the name, yeah, I've been called much worse. It's okay.
I won't poke and prod on that one.
I kind of want to, but I guess for the sake of us recording, we won't.
But there are a couple things to get into before we talk about the topic for today. So first and foremost, this is the immediate thing that we go into. We've talked with Kelly Gay in the past. We've talked with Troy Denning in the past. The first question we usually ask, Matt, how in the world did you get into Halo as a franchise?
I love Halo, man. I've been playing it since it first came out. In fact, the first time I saw Halo, I was interviewing for a writing gig with Bungie on one of their fantasy projects back when they were still in Chicago before they got sold to Microsoft. And I didn't end up getting the job. I went to a guy named John Scott Tynes, who's now one of the people in charge of D&D over at Wizards of the Coast, who's an old friend of mine. And but while I was there, they took me aside and said, hey, we got to show you this cool new thing we're working on. Check out this warthog. They showed me like, hey, watch, you can actually see the color of the dirt changes depending on which terrain it's going over, right? And back in the day, back in like 99 or whatever it was, this was really advanced, right? So, and I fell in love with it right away. I'm like, this is cool. I was a big fan of Bungie from Marathon on, having been a Mac guy back in the 80s. So having them show me that as soon as the game came out and I could gin up enough money for a Xbox, I plunked it down, bought that, played the game like crazy. it is also the first person shooter I introduced all my children to as they were old enough, right?
There you go.
Because, if you're playing Call of Duty or whatever, like, oh, yeah, I just splatted a human being. That's not such a great thing. But firing at aliens who have, glowing purple blood and stuff like that, it's a lot less scary and vicious. So that was always the first one I tried them out. I always said, hey, let's go play through Halo. So because of that, I got to play through a lot of Halo games more than once. And I've enjoyed them every time. I always have a great, fantastic time with them.
Well, that's fantastic. I do enjoy the description of it's less gruesome. What happened when they hit the flood, though?
Well, by the time they get to the flood, we know whether or not they're going to stomach a first-person shooter. Right?
That's fair. That's fair.
It's a little bit into the game. So usually in the first hour or two, the kid starts acting a little nervous. You're like, okay, let's go back to Mario. It's okay.
That's awesome. I know that there's we actually have a role here in the JumperScape Discord. It's exclusively to fathers who requested it on Father's Day. It is, I think it's just confirmed dad, I think is what it's called. And yeah, I know
ultra confirmed dad, believe me.
there are many strategies that have been proposed by this council of fathers on how to introduce their children properly to Halo. It's been one of the most entertaining parts of the whole server, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, and honestly, the early games you could do co-op couch play were perfect, right? So I could follow along with them; they could follow along with me. It was, we're sitting right next to each other, so that worked really well, and the kids always enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun playing with them. Some of them became game designers themselves, so it worked out pretty well.
That's so awesome! I love it. I love hearing stuff like that. Because Halo is really just it's a very approachable franchise on multiple fronts. Were you one of those guys that was able to participate in like the olden days of custom games and Forge and all that? Did you dabble into that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I didn't play around with that too much. I was busy making a living as a game designer in those days.
There you go.
Halo for me was recreational. I started out in tabletop role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and such, and then I moved into doing video games and novels and comics and pop culture encyclopedias like the Marvel Encyclopedia. Comic books, all sorts of different things. So at the end of the day, when I was done, I'm like, ooh, now I want to just go blow the hell out of things. Let's go play some Halo, right? As opposed to thinking in the different ways I was working on other projects. That was something that was very different than things I was working on. So I could just engage with the game on its own level without having to think about it in a creative capacity, right? Obviously, I changed when I started writing books about it, but at the time it was like, oh, now I get to go shoot things. This is fantastic. I don't have to think about it too hard. I can follow the plot, follow the levels, and have just a ball with it, and not worry about it. Scratched a different part of my brain essentially than what I was using all day long. So, good for me.
I love it. That's a very good way to put it because it wasn't like that for a whole lot. I mean, I was just a child, but same, just not with all the responsibility parts.
Yeah, exactly. It was just something I could say. And when it came to creative stuff, a lot of people would engage in Forge and that kind of thing, so scratch their own creative itches. But I was doing that all day long on other stuff anyway, so I didn't really feel the need to do that in that sense. I just wanted to play the game as written, right, as produced, as opposed to modding it, right? Modding is great. I mean, I'm a big fan of people doing all these great mods, but at the time, I just wanted to play the game, have my kids play it with me, do it at night when nobody was, screaming and crying because they were too young to play it those days.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So then if that was your introduction to the franchise, was there any point that you discovered that it had books, or was that something that came up when you were brought on to write something for?
Oh, no, Halo? I knew they had books. In fact, I had some friends who had been writing some of the books, like Tobias Backel is a buddy of mine, and he had been writing some of the Halo novels before I got involved in it. And that was back when the license was with Tor, and he had been an author for them. And I knew some of the other guys, too, from back in those days. Brandon Boren is a friend of mine from the tabletop industry. And Brandon was one of the guys who wrote the original Halo Bible, actually.
Oh, my gosh.
The unpublished bit, right? That gave you all the different background about, what's going on, how are the Spartans being created, all that kind of stuff, Dr. Halsey, et cetera, et cetera. He was one of the guys who wrote all that stuff down as the private in-house Bible. So I was in touch with a lot of this stuff before I ended up writing novels for it. And then what happened is the license for the novels ended up going over from Tor to Simon & Schuster. And I had written a Guild Wars 2 novel for them a few years before that. And my editor at the time is a guy named Ed Schlesinger, who's still currently the editor of the Halo novels, from what I understand. And the moment I discovered I had read that they had gotten the license, I was like, Ed, you promised me when I wrote this book for you that you would give me more work in the future on something cool. This is the thing. And he wrote me back and said, Matt, I'm literally writing you an email right now asking you if you want to write books for this. And they crossed in the ether there someplace. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Yes, the answer is yes. Let's figure this out. So so it worked out pretty well. I mean, I was a big fan from way back. As soon as I saw they had the license, I was like ready to beg. And he's like, no, actually, no. Good. And then we had got, writers like Troy Denning and Kelly Gay and a bunch of other folks came in. And Troy I've known since I was like 13, probably. Back when he was in charge of Dungeons & Dragons, one of the creative directors of D&D and working on D&D. I started going to conventions because I grew up in southern Wisconsin here, so I go to tabletop gaming conventions. I met Troy and a whole crew of guys who were starting a company called, what the heck was it? Pace Setter. And they did a game called Chill and Rabbit Revenge and Star Ace and Sandman, a whole bunch of other stuff, right? And they kind of mentored me into becoming a game designer and starting out that way. So when we started writing the Halo novels, and then Troy came out, I was just thrilled, right, to be able to work on a property together with one of my oldest friends who had kind of mentored me into doing all this stuff. And then he even helped me out, he and Mike Stackpole, when I was trying to make the move from writing tabletop games into writing novels. And they were both writing Star Wars stuff at the time. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is how you do it. And these are the people you talk to. And this is how they're going to try to screw you over and however else. And it was wonderful just having those guys to talk to growing up as I was getting into these things. And a real great callback to be able to hang out with them and do different things with them in the future as well.
That's fantastic. I love it. I honestly, I didn't know until I was talking with Mr. Denning that things are more interconnected than I had ever imagined. I'm used to the world of Star Wars novels where none of the authors even really know each other.
But it's Troy and Karen Travis and Aaron Alston used to know each other pretty well, and Aaron was a friend of mine as well.
Okay.
And Mike Stackpole I know from way back, and a lot of times publishers either in video games or novels actually end up rating tabletop games, right? Because especially about 20, 30 years ago, these were the only people that knew how to do these things. How to build onto a franchise, how to build things out, do the extra world building you need for that kind of stuff.
That's
create these things from whole cloth. So they would tap the people who would come up with D&D or were working on it over the years and bring them into the fold. And I was early on in that, although not one of the cutting edge guys like Troy was. I was kind of like 10 years younger coming into it. And so those guys mentored me into it when I was interested in doing it as well.
Well, you definitely grabbed onto a fantastic opportunity there. I would say for the sake of those who are listening, very many of us are glad that you grabbed the opportunity for joining in on the Halo scene, at least, which on that note, hopping in with New Blood, starting out with that story, was that a story that you had pitched with this as something that was like, we have to tell the story, you're the guy for the job? What was the setup for making that novel?
Yeah, the way they generally do it, and we were working with Ed Schlesinger and then Jeremy Patnode over at 343 at the time. He's since moved on, but Jeremy was our main point of contact there, and then Tiffany as well. Tiffany O'Brien was another one. They said, okay, we have a couple ideas for you. Every time they come to me about a book, they're like, we have a couple ideas, but you don't need to use these ideas. If you have better ideas, you want to write something different, let us know. So they had a couple ones that they were interested in doing. And I said, you know what? My favorite Halo game is Halo 3 ODST, right? Not part of that was because as much as I love the Master Chief and all his adventures, he's like this iconic superhero, like Superman, essentially, right? Yeah. And I always identified more strongly with the Batman level, the street level kind of guys. And for me, the Halo 3 ODST guys were that. And I'm like, oh, I would really like to explore that. Also, it seems like an area that not a lot had been done with at that point, and I wanted to see if I could mess around with that. They give you more freedom in the areas that are not as precious to them as well, right? Master Chief was like, oh, yeah, this is the icon. You got to be careful with him, treat him with kid gloves. But I could go into Halo 3 ODST and then really dig deep and make my own impression upon it. So I was excited about that. And they're like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And at the time, I didn't know that Buck was going to be a character in Halo 5, right? They hadn't told me. So I'm like, oh, sure, let me follow that up. In fact, they didn't tell me until I was done with the first book. They're like, yeah, just pay attention to Buck. We need him to be a hero, and we need him to be a Spartan 5 by the end of the book. But the rest of it's up to you, right? Or Spartan 4, yeah. And the rest of it's up to you, so just go. And I had a ball with it. you always have to turn in an outline before you start writing to make sure that what you're writing is something that is in line with what they want you to do. Because there's nothing really worse than writing a whole novel and having them say, no, that's not what we wanted at all. And the outline prevents you from making a big time mistake like that, wasting all your time on something. But yeah, they were like, go with that, and that's great. And then next time around, they wanted me to write something different, so I ended up doing Legacy of Onyx, and then we went back to Halo 3 ODST for the third book I wrote for them.
Man, that was way deeper than I thought I was going to go on.
I didn't ramble. I'm sorry about that.
No,
Ramble away.
So from how I understand it, it is kind of like it's a collaborative effort to write these stories between like you and 343. So I am just curious. You may have answered it before. Did you kill Rookie or did 343 kill
You're just
Rookie?
ripping off that Band-Aid immediately.
We have to know. This has to be known.
I'm glad we got this over with right away. So, like, literally, I'm walking through Gen Con, I think two years ago. Gen Con's a big tabletop gaming convention.
Oh, yeah.
And my son Patrick's got a Halo, I think a backpack or a jacket or a hat that he's wearing. Somebody goes, Halo! And he's like, yeah. And the guy goes, they did the Rookie wrong. I'm like, I'm walking with Patrick going, oh, God, just please walk on. He's like, no, that was my dad right here. And I'm like, oh. And the guy got a selfie with me and asked me to explain myself. So the funny part was they actually said I could kill anybody I wanted to but Buck. Right?
Fair.
And at one point I'm like, well, let's just go through and see who we have on the menu here.
Let's see who's on the
I don't
chopping
necessarily
block.
disagree with the decision. I'm going to say that right now.
I mean, the reason I chose the Rookie and didn't just start slaughtering people is that a lot of the other characters have been fairly well developed. They've done comic books with Romeo and some of the other ones, whatever. And it was fun to be able to. Those were characters that people cared about, and they had actors that had been working with them, whatever. The Rookie, even though he's your viewpoint character, they are your viewpoint character because you literally don't know anything about the Rookie. Even though they are the viewpoint character in Halo 3 ODST, you don't know anything about them. They never say a word of dialogue in the entire thing. You don't know their gender, their height, where they're from, anything, right? And I knew the problem was then that if I was going to write a book and include the Rookie in there, I was going to have to develop a voice for the character and a history for the character and everything else. And the simplest thing to do was to just kill the character. Right?
I respect
Problem solver.
I needed to kill at least one character to give the ODST guys an impetus. Why hadn't they become Spartans already? Right? Why were they dragging their feet on this? What was going on? And what would be something that would cause them to want to sign up for the program? Right? And the best way to do that was really to have one of their friends get killed. And I'm like, well, it's horrible, but this is from a storyteller point of view. Your job is to make people care about a character and then torture them and have them go through the worst parts of their lives and then hopefully come out, on the other end of it changed and a better person. In this case, it was Buck was the one I was most concerned about. I really needed to give him the reason to move forward, and killing the Rookie was great for that. But it also meant that if I had started to write the Rookie and fill in details about the Rookie, most people would say you're wrong because you filled in your own head canon about who the Rookie is and why you care about them and everything else. That's because you basically fill this void that's been left there in the game. And if my version of that conflicts with your version, you're going to say, no, that doesn't seem right, or that seems wrong, or whatever. And it seemed cleaner to let you keep that version of that in your head, and then kill them, unfortunately. But so for that reason, that was an easy choice to make. If the Rookie needed to go, it left the Rookie intact as the character that everybody knew them to be, but it also allowed me to give the characters that were remaining the impetus to join up with the Spartan program.
Did you expect that everyone was going to collectively break down online when it happened?
I'm actually pretty happy about that. I mean, not that I wanted to hurt people,
Sweet
but,
tears.
if you're a writer and you kill off a character well, and people it arises emotions from them, it brings out emotions. That's a good thing. There's nothing to be wrong with that. That's actually a goal that most writers have, is to make a reader feel something, right? Now, it might be they're angry at me. It might be that they're sad about the rookie's death and they're transmuting that into anger, whatever, right? Bob Salvatore is a friend of mine, R.A. Salvatore, right? And he wrote the Star Wars novel in which Chewbacca gets killed by having a moon dropped on him.
Yeah.
And Bob has been having people give him for that for years, decades. And when they threw out that part of continuity so that Chewbacca had not been killed, he's like, oh, thank God. This really thick Boston accent. He's like, oh, thank God.
I bet people still go after him.
He was afraid that was going to be on his tombstone, right? Here lies R.A. Salvatore, kill Chewbacca. And with the rookie, there was some outcry on that. But, again, I think a lot of it's because that's your viewpoint character. So you've invested some emotion in that character already. And he's like, oh, you killed him off this way. I'm like, yeah, I know. He died in a terrible way. He died in a way that made the characters feel like they needed more power. He died in a powerless way, right? They need more power to be able to do the kind of things they need to do, which is why they then have to become Spartans after that, finally. And so for me, that was actually a very sharp story arc for them to be able to follow through. And I didn't regret doing it at all. Whether or not people think I did a good job of the writing, that's their opinion or whatever. But I had a good time working on it. I thought, and I cared about the rookie too, but I wanted to send him off in a way that would inspire the others to go where they needed to be.
Well, I think it worked out rather well, especially in the context of other stories that you've written. I've always appreciated the characters that you choose to pull in. New Blood with June. I love seeing him come back. Bad Blood, you brought in, I don't think anybody ever would have expected seeing Sadie coming back. No one would have expected that. I'm one of the few people on the planet, I think, that actually decided to go and find all those audio logs and listen to the whole story. And it's a good story. She's a good character. I like doing
the research and how much I care about what I'm doing there, right? I go through and do the research. I become a mega fan when I'm working on something like this. And to me, it's delightful to see these little threads you can kind of pull in that way, right? And bring everything together in a way that the people that actually created the originals probably wouldn't have expected either. Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, I love it. We'll have more questions later on because we have plenty of listeners who are aware of the fact that you're on the show right now and have been filling our guest Q&A with various questions. So we'll get to those at some point. For now, though, in relation to Bad Blood, and I believe some of Legacy of Onyx, that's one of the novels I admit I've not read, so I would not be able to say a whole lot about that one. Sure. We're slowly chugging along. There are currently 37 books, so it takes a bit. Yeah. Actually, I don't know if you know this because you mentioned his name earlier, but Jeremy Patinaud, he's actually writing the most recent Halo novel coming out next year.
I didn't know. Good for him. That's awesome. Yeah, he was great. Jeremy was one of the best people to work with there. He'd always be like, this is not going to work here for reasons you couldn't possibly have known about because it's in-house lore stuff that we're developing. But this is a solution for it that you could use if you want to. But if you want to come up with another solution that works better, we are more than happy to listen. He was fantastic. Very inspirational to work with.
That's awesome.
I'm glad to see him getting a moment in the spotlight as opposed to working behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah. If you get curious at all, there was a thing that they showed off at Halo Championship Series at the community stage just a couple weeks ago. It was a full breakdown. It's going to be a fantastic story from the looks of it. So that's definitely something to look out for, both for you and those listening. A little
better than Jeremy, honestly. He'll do a great job with it.
So on those topics, the created, the assembly, Cortana and her isms. She's very strange as a character after the whole situation with coming back to life and all of that. We wanted to talk today on the topic of the created and the assembly. Originally, the plan for today's episode was just to kind of go through how the assembly was formed, how the created was formed. Now it's going to be more of an opinion sort of thing. How much of it is Cortana going nuts? How much of it is AI going nuts? The differences between the assembly and the created, that sort of thing. As a way to kick it off, just a brief overview on what we're talking about here. The assembly is a conglomeration of AI that is said to have started in the 2100s. So they've been around for hundreds of years by this point in the Halo universe. And they've been subtly controlling actions of the human race to protect them or defend them, and doing things in ways that no one would have noticed. And they were only really officially acknowledged finally in actual canon and interacted with in recent canon fodders posted by now Halo Studios. They will go in and they'll add a little bit of a trickle of something saying that, let's say, Governor Sloan, he finds some assembly representative and he's just like, what are you doing? Why don't you join? And the assembly's like, you're right. And the assembly has this like minor and major thing going on. There's a hierarchy for some reason. There's very little that's known about those guys because they're meant to be mysterious, and much like in anything in storytelling, having a little bit of mystery. It's always a nice little tidbit. But the part that has gotten a lot of explanation and a whole lot of storytelling is the created, because the assembly went over sometimes every now and then. The minors, especially, they went over and they joined the created. The majors stayed in the assembly thinking that those guys were foolish. But the created, the whole premise of it, Cortana is stepping up after the events of Halo 5 and during the events of Halo 5, really, and being like, hey, you guys want to just like have your terminal I need to get erased thing taken care of? And of course, every AI that has had an existential crisis ever, which is all of the smart AI basically, are like, oh yeah, sure, why not? And so Cortana promises them that if they join her, she'll send them into the domain, and in the domain they'll be cured just like she was, and presto changeo, a bunch of immortal AI are just out there in the galaxy. Which is curious to say the least, because there are a couple AI that for some reason, I actually don't know if it's explained at any point, but Roland could have said yes. He didn't. The shipboard AI aboard the Infinity just is sort of like, yeah, whatever. It just doesn't even think about it. I don't really know of all the ways of how your stories, Matt, tie into the created, but when you were writing for the created, were there any nuances about that faction, the characters that were in there that kind of sort of popped out to you as more interesting than others?
Yeah, I mean, like Roland's a lot of fun, right? He's a great character. He's like these other guys are traitors, right? They're going to screw everything up. They're going to break things, and so he's on the side of humanity. And there's this bit in the Halo lore where, of course, the reason that they're supposedly the AIs have a limited lifespan is because eventually they start breaking down and go insane, right?
Yep.
And you can have an argument about whether or not Cortana did. She probably did, which is why she set up this whole thing, becomes this crazed version of herself toward the end of the Halo 5, et cetera, after that. So for me, it was really fun to be able to play around with that and to see where things were. I mean, Bad Blood is basically takes up right after Halo 5, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a kick to be able to just, I get to have the Master Chief and the Arbiter there in the beginning scenes for a little bit, and then take off into the wilderness with Buck and the crew. So that was a bit of an open space. Again, one of the reasons I think they allowed me to do that is because Halo 3 ODST, that crew is kind of a side crew, right? So I don't have to worry about stepping on whatever canon they have coming up for the next game if I do something like that. And then they can try to incorporate what little side missions I might have put into whatever lore they want to do. But it's not like I'm stealing the Master Chief and running off with them at that point, right?
Yeah.
And Troy's been doing a bunch of that stuff recently, but he's more welded into the story nowadays than they did. They took them a long time to get to the point where they were willing to have people write Master Chief stories in that way, which is one of the reasons you see a lot of the stories being written for Onyx and things like that, which don't appear in the games, generally speaking. It's a safe place for you to run off and do these things with the books without having to worry about the video game coming through and stomping that flat at some point. Because one of the crazy things, when you're writing a novel about a game that's in development, or at the time that the game is in development, you always run the risk of somebody inside the game saying, no, we can't have that. We actually have changed things around now. And you can't have the tail wagging the dog. The dog has to be in charge. The video game is the primary thing. The novels are secondary. And that's a very natural way for it to be. But it makes it a challenge to be able to write those books because you never know when you're going to get stomped flat. So going into some area where they're not walking, at least, allows you to have more freedom and more ability to write some stories that people care about.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't see the visceral response you got out of Connor and Shane from the novels or secondary thing, but yeah, that is something that a lot of people have been talking about a lot recently, actually, because recently going into more of the story, which Didact is associated now, so we can talk about that. The Didact from Halo 4, his story came to a close recently in a book, and that has caused a good amount of back and forth conversation, because first we thought his story ended in Halo 4, then his story continued in a comic book, then his story ended in that comic book, then his story continued in a novel, and then that story was also subsequently ended in the same novel. All good stories, but it is something to be said about the debate currently being that these characters that are started in a game deserve to have their stories ended in a game. But that also, it's a back and forth because of the fact that these stories are actually, they're really good is the thing. Like Epitaph is one of the best Halo novels I've ever read. But I also love the Didact, and I would have loved to see him again. And I think that's what a lot of people are currently experiencing right now with in relation to the ODSTs. They really want Alpha 9 to come back as Spartans now in the games at some point, just because now they've gotten such a serious taste of them. They've gotten to see what those characters are like. And I don't know. It's an interesting concept you brought up there, I would say.
I mean, as a fanboy myself, I would love to see that happen, right? I would love to see those guys get back on the screen and be able to play them again. But I also know that, you only get a new Halo game every, 4, 5, 6 years or whatever, right? And they are massive undertakings with hundreds, if not thousands of people working on them. And there's just not a way to cover all the different characters you possibly could in a game. There's just too much stuff. So if they decide that Didact's not going to appear in the next game, they're like, well, but we know people would love to know more about him. Maybe we could write a novel about him. And I think that's a good way to deal with that kind of stuff, right? To be able to tie up some loose ends. Halo, you can say a lot of different things about them. They're very good at doing the multimedia thing where they're paying attention to the canon and making sure that everything links up. Not every franchise is that way, right? Sometimes you get through and they're like, no, that's not canon anymore. That's all been stricken. Like, yeah, but I mean, you have these players and these readers and these comic book readers and tabletop gamers, whatever. They've emotionally invested in all these things, and to tell them that it doesn't count anymore is always kind of brutal, right? But this is a way for players, fans of the Halo, to be able to say, now I know more about this character, and feel like they actually had that service done, right? The fun part, of course, is that if somebody in the studio at Halo Studios comes up with a great idea to have the Didact in some future point, they'll bring them back. I mean, I'm working on Marvel stuff nowadays, Marvel tabletop games, and man, you can't kill somebody up in the Marvel universe. They always come back. Right? Somebody always comes back. There's always a way to bring somebody back. Don't worry about that. I mean, if it fits the new product, they'll figure out a way to make it happen. It's just a matter of making the story feel like it resonates and it's true.
Yeah, I think a lot.
In the meantime, you get to have these novels, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are starting to learn that about that thing with Marvel. A lot of the film fans are learning that right now.
Exactly.
Those who have actually interacted with that media for a while, I mean, you just don't read a comic without something going on that involves some character that should be dead or is off in a different dimension or something like that. We've talked about this before, though. We can say for a fact that we're glad that Halo never went down that route where there's just alternate timelines and stuff. They tried it with the TV show, and that didn't go over very well.
See, some of these series, I don't like death being meaningless for some of these characters.
There are some like that, yeah. And so that's the thing, is that these sort of stories are very much, there's an audience for everything, and that audience has demands. And right now, the Halo audience is demanding that things stay as consistent as they have been, which that is indeed something very impressive from 343 now Halo Studios, them and their ability to make it so that you can do all this multimedia stuff, even to the point of taking your Mega Bloks figures and making them canon with little bits of lore that get added to the Halopedia.
That's what scares me with the writing in the games. They're very, as of like the last few years, they're very like nostalgia driven in terms of like art style and characters and quotes. And like, I know there's a portion of the audience like, oh, I wish Johnson was still here. I wish Noble 6 was alive somewhere in a cave somehow, some way. And like, I don't want them to backtrack. Like, as a kid, one of the most meaningful deaths in a game or like any form of media was Johnson when I played Halo 3 for the first time. I was a literal child. I had no knowledge of oh yeah, they're the main characters. He's unkillable. Everyone loves him. There's no way. And then like the ending of Halo 3 absolutely distraught me. I don't want something like that. And I'm not saying that's what'll happen with Johnson, but I don't want them to take that route with anything. If you're going to kill somebody off, let them be killed off in like somewhat of a meaningful way. Don't backtrack. Like if you're going to do it and don't backtrack years down the road. Don't do that.
In hindsight, I'd say when you look at Halo, like the original trilogy, Johnson has "I'm gonna die" like pasted on his.
Oh, absolutely. But again, I was a very, very ignorant child, like very ignorant to the ways of like meaningful writing. Like I didn't play much. Like if I played story-driven games, it was like Sly Cooper or something like that. It wasn't anything like Halo. Like I didn't play anything like that before I played Halo. So like that type of writing was new to me, and just the fact that I experienced it when I was really young definitely hit a lot harder, and I'd hate to see them backtrack on things like that so far down the road.
You know, honestly, Matt, have your kids experienced the trauma of Noble Six's death yet?
Oh man, Pat, the one who was wearing the stuff when we got called out about the rookie, he still goes to this day. He's like, "Are you sure they're dead?" Like, pretty sure. You know, that was the whole point of the whole thing. But he still gets misty eyed thinking about that sometimes. He's a big fan of this stuff. He loves this stuff too. Yeah, he actually has a degree in game design. Is just graduated in May.
That's awesome.
And is looking for a job in video games, which of course is a really hard thing to find right now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's been like 20,000 layoffs in the video game industry in the last 2 years, right? Oh man, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's pain.
Yeah, fortunately, he's got me to help kick open some doors for him, so hopefully he'll find something soon. But it's
cool.
It's a tough industry. It's a tough industry to work in. You know, it's it can chew you up and spit you out. So
yeah.
One of the reasons I still love tabletop games, it's a bit friendlier, right? Not as much money floating around, but in that way you don't get as many sharks floating with you as well. So.
Yeah, and like small successes are successes, and big successes, like recently Cyberpunk dropped a board game, and it's a huge tabletop experience that can be played up to like 1 to 4 players or something. It had a goal of maybe like I think $100,000 or something. It raised $7 million. So
yeah, that's crazy, right? But Mike Pondsmith's an old friend of mine from tabletop games. I mean, Cyberpunk came out back in the early 90s, I think, late 80s, and I've known Mike and Lisa and now their son Cody for decades. So. Yeah, it's great to see that stuff. Get to those the heights that happen because of the video game now are just stunning, right? But I still get to go to Gen Con and see Mike and Cody and Lisa hanging around the booth and catch up with them, which is a blast.
That's fantastic. So do you go to Gen Con every year then?
Yeah, 42 years running now.
Okay, well I'll have to keep that in mind.
Now, but I started when I was very young, but I have not missed a Gen Con in 42 years.
Well, I'll have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's a great show. If you like tabletop games, it's the best show to go to. It's fantastic fun. This year I also helped them run. They had a slate of panels for 50 years of Dungeons and Dragons because it's the 50th anniversary of the game. And I set up a slate of panels for the books that have been written, not the games, but the books and the histories and all that kind of stuff. And had a bunch of authors come in for that. It was a lot of fun. Had a great time.
That's so much fun. If that's the case, then were you able to? Did you see / did you get a chance to try out Halo Flashpoint?
No, I did not. I saw it, but I did not get a chance to play it. They as I recall, they had it at a booth there, and actually, I barely got to the floor. I was only on the floor for about an hour, so I'm not even sure I saw it there. I've been following the development online, looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to play it. I'm a big miniatures player from way back when I was a kid too. So when they actually come up with that stuff, like sign me up for that. And it looks good. I mean, I think it's Mantic that's doing it. Is that right?
Yeah, Mantic's doing it. Yep.
Yeah, they're a good studio. They do some quality stuff. So I'm excited about getting my hands on that when it finally comes out.
Yeah, they were handing out some test stuff. It's sort of like if you took a Halo multiplayer match and just turned it into a tabletop. It's kind of it. It has dice explosions and everything. It's wild.
That's the way it should be, right?
So, with that all being said, I think that we've covered enough of the history for now. I think there's quite a bit that could be talked about, but unfortunately, we do have limitations on the time on this show. Maybe one day, not so much, but for now, we do. So we do have questions from the audience. If you are feeling mentally prepared for it,
be ready.
Never, but give it a shot.
Well, we're gonna start it off nice, huh?
I'm gonna say just be prepared for any unusual usernames.
Yeah.
We have a few funny folks in here.
See, one more thing. The questions might be vetted. However, the usernames, different story.
Yes. So I'm going to start us off light. First of all, this week on the book club, we're watching Halo Legends, the package and the babysitter, and this user likes to change his username based on what we're watching and reading. Last week we were reading a Halo Wars comic that was called Something Has Happened, and that has Spartan Jerome in it from Halo Wars 2. So he renamed himself to Jerome Has Happened, that sort of thing. He does that. So a question from a package for the babysitter asking, why'd you make such a lovable character like Mickey into a traitorous SOB?
Actually, we were talking earlier about being a Mega fan, and if you go into some of the, I forget what it was. It was one of the side things, like the audio logs and blogs they had been doing with Mickey. They revealed that his parents had been traitors, right? And that was the reason they had joined the ODST. It was to try to prove that he was not one of these people. He had been raised as an orphan and was trying to get away from his parents' shame, the shame that had been involved with his parents being traitors. But the way that it really worked is because his parents had been part of the lunar traitor movement. And then when the aliens showed up, they're like, okay, we're all fighting aliens and we're unified against them. And then when that war was over, when the Covenant conflict had ended and they started fighting humans again, that's when Mickey's like, oh, wait, I can't be a part of this anymore, right? So his motivation seemed pretty clear to me that he would be a character like that, right? And part of what I was doing when I was writing the novel, I wanted the novel to kind of follow Halo 3 ODST. So in that sense, it's a noir murder mystery. You don't know what the heck's going on. You know that somebody's holding one of your main viewpoint character hostage, and the narration jumps around in time like crazy, just like Halo 3 ODST, right? And that was what I was trying to replicate with that. So I needed to have somebody be a traitor, and Mickey was the perfect candidate for that because of his parents' stand against humanity, or against the Earth government doing this in the first place. And that was only supplanted by the unification of humanity against the Covenant. And then when that was gone, his feelings changed.
Man, I'll keep you in mind if we need a new host for the show.
I did think deeply about this. It's been a long time, but I meant what I was doing when I wrote it. So.
You were cooking. You were doing a fantastic job when you were writing these. So I was not expecting anything less than a very well thought out answer. So I'm very happy with that. So now we got another question from a buddy of ours, Flyboy Pfeiffer. He asks very simply, do you think there will be more ODST focused books in the future?
I have no idea. Honestly, every now and then I get an email from Ed Schlesinger saying, hey, we got some ideas here we want to talk to you about. And I'm like, yeah, sure, Ed, let's set something up. And then I never hear. I'm like, and if it works out that they want me to work on something, yeah, I'd be delighted to go back to this. If somebody else takes up the baton and runs with it, more power to them. It's not my choice. I would always pick me to write it. That's the guys at Halo Studios and at Simon & Schuster at Pocket Books to make those decisions. No idea. I would love to see it because I think there's a lot of fun stories to tell there. And again, I love the cast and characters. I love the tone. I get to have Nathan Fillion's Buck running around in my head for like 6 months every time I write one of those books. And that's a good place to be.
Oh, I love it. I love it. He's back for a second question, Flyboy Pfeiffer here, asking, were there any themes or stories that helped guide you when you wrote New Blood? So as in, I'm thinking themes as in music and the stories like inspiration, other stories that may have inspired your writing.
Well, I mean, because it's noirish, I mean, I was a big fan of noir detective fiction way back in the day, right? So like Philip Marlowe, Raymond Chandler stories, Dashiell Hammett, all that kind of stuff. Dark things where your emotions are getting the best of you because you don't know what's going on and you're the honest man in a terrible world, right? What's the phrase? He has to be a man with the skills of the bad people who walks down these horrible streets without being tainted by them himself, right? And so, yeah, that did too. I actually, when I was writing the book, I listened to the Halo 3 ODST soundtrack on repeat, right? When I write, I try not to listen to things that have lyrics in them because they tend to interfere. You have a verbal center in your brain that's working hard at that point. And I don't like to have to being distracted by trying to decipher or listen to words in a song. So I either listen to instrumental stuff or I listen to stuff that I know by heart. So my brain's not trying to figure it out. Right. And so, yeah, I listen to that on repeat, just going through. I could probably still hum bars of it at this point.
Awesome. So you heard it here first, folks. The official soundtrack of New Blood and Bad Blood is the ODST soundtrack.
It is, without a doubt.
I love it. I love it so much. We're gonna be coming up on it pretty soon, New Blood at the very least, and I'm very excited that we're gonna be going over it again because I know there's gonna be a whole lot of people wanting to. They're probably gonna want to listen to it while we're reading through it. So we'll see what happens there. So next up, we have from Boomerang, a nice little content creator friend of ours. If you could write any type of genre of story in the Halo universe other than action, what would it be?
I mean, to me, in a lot of ways, Halo is action, right? But I also think it'd be fun to kind of do like an archaeologist, Indiana Jones type, who's researching about all the different, the Forerunners and everything else, and investigating different areas. And I think you could have a lot of fun with something like that. That's an excuse of a character to go out and mess with things in a way that doesn't involve shooting directly, right? But could involve shooting at fun points. So, again, take like an Indiana Jones type character and have them running around and learning more about the history and peeling back the layers of Halo lore that's been built up over the decades. I think that would be a kick to be able to pull something like that off.
That would be fantastic. I haven't even thought about a concept like that. I know for a fact some people are going to be like, "Oh, it should just be Halsey." No.
Halsey's fun, but Halsey's a scientist, right? And she's a
yes.
twisted kind of scientist.
And she's a little bit
morally ambiguous at best, right? But I think having somebody who's like, you're always like, "Hey, we just found this Forerunner artifact." Like, who's the people who find that? Who are the people who go and investigate it? Actually, boots on the ground to figure out how it works. And imagine like raiding a Forerunner temple essentially, and trying to get through the traps and figure out how things work, and then discovering the true meaning behind that one bit that they're investigating. That would be kind of cool.
That would be fantastic. Well, let us know when you start writing it, all right?
I'm doing it in my head already.
All right, so we got two more for you. So we've got one from, and this is where Connor's warning comes up. Spooky Nuts asks, bit of a two-part question. Did you have to come up with some of the Covenant character names, or did 343 provide you with a list for you to use in your novels? If you did have to make them up, how difficult was that?
If there's something that's already published or put in a game, then they give us a list of that stuff, and we can consult, Halopedia or their own internal wiki or whatever. The rest of it you just make up, right? How tough is it? It's as tough as making anything else up in the world, right? It's made up from whole cloth, so you're just coming up with something you think sounds great and fits with what has been done before. So when somebody hears it, they say, "Oh, that resonates with me." That it sounds like something that could have been happening. So it's not that tough. And often what will happen is if you come up with something and then it'll run past, Jeremy or Tiffany or the other people I was working with back in the day, and they'd say, "Yeah, that's not quite it," right? Or they'd say, "Yeah, perfect, spot on, go." That's one of the reasons it's a collaborative process with the people who actually own the property, and you're just playing with their toy box in that sense. Occasionally adding new action figures to it. That's about it.
That's a beautiful way of putting that. This is one of my favorite parts about interviewing you author folk. You guys have really fun ways of saying things.
We got metaphors. Yeah.
So that just makes me wonder how Sally Neon got through.
You just don't know. Sometimes you catch people on the right day.
I just hear it and I'm like, it's Celine Dion. That's what it sounds like.
Celine Dion.
Sometimes the writers aren't even aware of what they're doing, right? I was reading Magic the Gathering comic books for a while, and I came up with a character named Dak Faden, and I'm like, I don't know, it sounds good. And one of my sons, Marty, is like, "So you mean it's like deck fading, right? Like a planeswalker's moving from one." Okay, yeah, you got me. Okay.
Oh, that's so much fun. Those sort of associations are always entertaining to just poke fun at. It's easy comedy. Yeah. Now, for your final question, it's probably going to be the most asked question you've ever had in your entire life. I'm just going to call it. Rogue Ninja asks, As an inspiring writer, what advice do you have to a new writer?
Read widely, read everything you get your hands on, and try not to be discouraged. Right? Your tastes outstrip your skill when you're starting, so you will think everything you write is crap, and you're probably right. Okay. The trick, of course, is that as you practice, as you get better at it, your skills will start to reach up to where your tastes are. And then you need to make your taste more advanced and keep going and cycling back and forth. Yeah, even I'm still learning as a writer. That's what you do, even if I've been at it for decades. And when you're starting out, try not to be discouraged. Keep at it. One of the other bits of advice is, your first million words are crap. Get them out of your system as quickly as you can. And then you don't have to show it to people and be embarrassed by it. You say, yeah, that's crap. But you learn things by writing. You learn things by doing. And go do those things. And then when you're ready to show it to people, start small with trusted people you care about, and they will tell you whether or not you suck. And you will. And then you'll get to the point where you're ready to actually show things to publishers and agents and things. Just keep at it. The other thing I try to tell people is if you're having fun with it at the actual process of it, that's a good sign, right? If you are pulling teeth and you hate every minute of it, but you just want to have been published as opposed to enjoying the work, that's not a good sign. That means you're there for the glory and the money and everything else. And there are easier ways to make money than by beating your head against a wall if you don't enjoy doing it.
That's all very sound. I honestly, I was expecting a little more, this question sort of thing, but that was actually solid.
Everybody asks this question because, they're excited. That's good. They want to learn how to write. They want to learn how to do these things. And I always think you need to share that with people when they're starting out, no matter what age they are, because some people start when they're 6, some people start when they're 60. But either way, you're learning as you go. And it's great that you're curious about it and excited about it. I want more readers. I want more writers. I like reading stuff too. Go out there and be awesome. I want to read your stuff.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you very much for those words then. My friends, Mr. Matt Forbeck, we are unfortunately coming to the end of our show. And of course, now our 5th guest, our cat, just now shows up onto the set to send us off. Whenever we have a missing host, she likes to replace them. So I guess she just realized she didn't have to be on the clock today. So she's just been off screen. My friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for listening to our conversation. I hope that it was it was informational and educational and fun, entertaining, all of that sort of stuff. Next week, I'm not even going to try to look up what it is for next week because I just don't feel like looking at it right now, but it's going to be something entertaining. It'll be fun. I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting into some of the definitive histories that we've been thinking about doing for the last couple months or so. So we'll see what we do about there. But yeah, if you want to see more of Matt Forbeck's work, everything that he's ever written for Halo is on Halopedia already. You could just go and look at his personal page that they made for him. Any of his other personal works, you've got a website. It's fairly simple to look up if you just find
Forbeck.com. Google is your friend. It's easy.
Yep. And the list is long. So if you try to read everything he's ever wrote, I wish you luck. But Matt, is there anything that you talked a little bit about what you're doing right now? Is there anything that our listeners could look forward to in your upcoming works that you can actually, communicate, tell us about?
Yeah, it's always a trick about what you're allowed to speak about. Yeah. I just had a graphic novel come out for Behemoth, which is a virtual reality game. You can actually download that for free. I think it's at behemothvr.com. And that's actually not for sale anywhere. They just have it up on the website for free. They gave out free copies at Gamescom. But that was a fun project to work on. If you like my writing, you might enjoy that. I have just putting to bed right now the Spider-Verse expansion for the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. Which I've been working on for a couple months, and that's a lot of fun too. So, if you told me when I was a kid I got to do Spider-Man role-playing game stuff, I'd have just knocked myself silly. So that comes out in March of next year, I think, and there'll be more stuff. Just keep tuned. Find me on the socials, and look me up on Amazon or at your friendly local bookstore, comic book store, or game store, and enjoy things. Have fun. That's my. As long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. That's what I tell people.
Perfect. That ties in perfectly with how we keep on saying we like to have fun here. I love it. Oh, man. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. Listeners, thank you so much for popping in. Those who are watching on YouTube, very much appreciate you guys as well. Stay tuned in a bit for the Patreon segment. Otherwise, we will say goodbye for now, and we'll see you guys on the show next week.
Bro, get on.
It's Patreon time. It's Patreon time.
That was incredible. Thank you, Connor. I don't know if that was even on purpose or not.
It was.
It was definitely on purpose.
we
I
have
saw you staring at him and like formulating something in your brain. I'm like, oh god, what is he up to?
we have kicked Matt Forbeck back into the ether where he belongs.
Oh!
He did the freaking Halo 3 just death sounds.
Oh.
Yeah. I love that he did that. I was so happy they did that. We're here for the Patreon segment.
Yay.
Yay. And the P.O. box.
Ooh.
We still have that.
We do. I just haven't checked it in a long time, which I was expecting a few more items, but I guess it's just been a lull in this month. But that's okay. Here we go. Starting off from the here we go from the top. It's Jacob Adlam, Scion Esports. Love you guys. It's Default 456, Dark Side of 42, Knight of Honor, Boomerang, Hounds of Meath, Linda Marie.
The realist.
Linda Marie.
My nuts hurt.
Are you okay over there, Austin?
Oh, Hammerbush, how lovely are thy cultists.
It's not been Halloween yet.
So we're not even in November.
Dude,
Happy Halloween. I forgot to bring down the spooky chest. I was going to put a spooky chest in place of this one.
You have a spooky chest?
I will say,
Yeah. It's not nearly this big, but I do have a spooky chest.
I'm a little upset. I did buy a little mask for Halloween just for an episode. It never came in. I was upset.
Next year.
Next year. I can't wait. Now I have
If
to
you
wait
really
a
want
whole
to play
year.
a prank on someone, just wait for like a Christmas episode that we do, and be like, "Hey, hey guys, remember that Halloween mask came in? It's like December."
You know what? I could do a Christmas theme of that character.
I mean, if Nightmare Before Christmas Came, which is a Halloween movie, I refuse to believe
So,
when anybody says it's not a Christmas
Are
movie.
we going to get a little tiny Christmas tree for the set?
Yes, I actually own, physically, I own Charlie Brown's tree.
Oh, I have one too.
Like
I'm gonna
rights
put
and
it right here.
everything.
Huh?
Like rights and everything to the tree.
Bye,
Amazing.
kitty.
Oh, are we doing?
Next, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is the best reindeer alive.
Why? It is not even November.
Spartan
This
Dave.
is Kyle's fault somehow.
The one, the only,
I have the cat on me.
Dick Hammer. Oh, wait, false alarm. It's only slipstream.
Oh, let's say.
That's what it says. That's good. Cool Blazer, Spartan Book G156, Stably Unstable, Unholy God, Clover, Eater of Pickles, Connor Clark, Dapper Dame, Dylan. I can see in your walls. Your body spray smells nice. That's totally at you. I am Steve.
It's Steve.
Please change it. I'm tired of him doing that.
Lactating Gator, Lactating Milk MT, The Lactation of Mercy, Thomas Lane, Abba Duba Da. Connor, can you move in a little? You drifted out of frame. Sky Cairo, Eva, Halloween is the worst holiday.
But the
That's a
candy.
lie.
I know that profile picture. That's Pfeiffer.
Nice rage bait, dude. Not gonna work.
I like candy and I like harmless pranks.
I am a big fan of just making the small children happy. Straight up. Yesterday was trick or treating for us on this side of the planet. There was a small child. I was scaring a lot of people. Some people thought I was just fake. I thought that my low effort costume would not resonate with anybody.
That kept happening to me, and I was like fully moving.
Me too. I don't get what these people are talking
People
about.
come up, like I'd like kind of be walking around like a little bit, like kind of swaying and like not trying to be a statue. And then I go, and then it was usually like a mom goes, "Oh, he's real."
like that happened, like 5 times, right? Like it just kept on happening.
It was kind of fun.
But there was one small kid who saw me doing all this spooky stuff because I'm looming. I got my shoulders up, but also forward. You know, like I'm freaking people out. And this small kid walks up to me, and it's just, and I like kneel down to his height, and I'm like, "Hello," because I have a voice underneath it, and he's just, "How are you?" And I'm like, and so like I tried to put him there, and the kid's just, and I look up at his head. He doesn't know how to handshake, does he? And he's like, "No." I'm like, okay, and then I just pet and send him on his way. It was the best. That's why Halloween is the best holiday to me.
I was doing a similar thing, except I was a ghost face.
Yes.
There's this one kid in a little astronaut suit. He's like maybe 2, like walks up. He's just mad dogging me the entire time. Like it's like And I'm like, I'm not evil. I'm not going to try and traumatize the child. So I like go into mascot mode. I'm like
Disney mascot.
He starts to get a little, and I just go, like, and then like, but then like his mom's like, come on, let's go. And like, literally as he's walking all the way down the street, the entire time, he's just still
staring
at me. And I keep just kind of periodically going,
I wasn't too sure about you.
Gosh, I love handing out candy. It's just so much. It's so much fun. I don't know. I like seeing them having a good time and adding to that experience. Plus, I'm still riding the high from 2016, where I was told that people were talking about me in the elementary schools because I was handing out toys, and they were like, "What'd you get? What'd you get from him?" Yeah.
Yeah. What a good guy.
I'm still riding that high. It was great. Installation Lactation, Jake Somali, Keith077, Kid Puncher 2006 on topic. Mr. Shifter James Zealot, my name is Prophet of Lactation I'm just gonna start skipping that one, to be honest, until he changes his name. Prophet of Lactation, Randoms Feed, Shade Communications, Spooky Nuts, Tucker, Valkorian, Wyatt, 80-ton Railgun. Now that sounds like a humdinger.
I can go for one of them.
that sounds like a humdinger.
Zealot of Lactation, Tico Vatamai, spooky. Aussie ODST, Damian Groth, Hot Take, Halloween sucks.
Okay.
2 of you?
No, it's Rage Bait. They're trying to do Christmas and also dig at Halloween. You're not fun.
No.
Because I'm pretty sure all of us have like expressed our joy of Halloween.
I've watched Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm going to watch it again before the month is out.
I haven't watched it yet. I watch it every year.
Actually, straight up, I don't know if you guys even care. Studio Ghibli a while ago did a spooky themed thing. They did Kiki's Delivery Service a long time ago, and they're going to be playing it in theaters again.
They'd probably be very good at that because they have depending on the movie, they have a very unsettling art style. Like Spirited Away traumatized me.
Oh,
as a
it's
kid.
terrifying.
It's so fucking scary.
But
so
it's good.
If they did something horror-esque, they'd probably do amazing at it.
If you want to come tomorrow, it's happening tomorrow.
I might have to.
It's good. You'll be doing 2 through 7. You ain't going to nowhere.
No, I'm going to be here.
Unless you want me to wait until Wednesday.
No, you guys can go.
But what if you want to go?
I don't know.
It's really good.
I didn't think about it.
One day,
Maybe.
Connor.
What, Wednesday?
Yeah, to watch the movie.
This Wednesday?
Yes.
I promised scary movie night with my parents.
Well, then bring them. Okay, if nothing works out, see you tomorrow. I'm going as Halo 5 Anniversary for Halloween. The fact that that's possible is wild to me. Laughing Sam, Meme Lord, Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. That's a good one. We'll take that.
A little early.
PD104, the chaplain, the oldest living Halo fan. The summoning circle for Mariah Carey has been drawn. Prepare. Yikes, this does not look good. Yikes, this does not look good. I know it's supposed to be the other way, but that's why we read it. I don't know. I'm not singing this one again, Kyle. Alex Spartans, number 30. Claude Spark 5970. Listen, Ismaz Daz Kadidal, change your name again. Halo the guy, is change your username too. All of you who have sentences that I've read multiple times, change your usernames. Iskari, Kiri, Kalahuli, Mad Jeremy, Papa Emeritus the 5th, I guess. You're new. Welcome.
He's not new.
What?
You've read his name like 3 weeks in a row. 3 or 4.
Remington Cloutier, Sergeant Johnson Stick in the Communal Rock, Spartan MA5K, Spooky Schnoogans. That's how he wrote it. It's actually kind of impressive.
That was pretty fun.
That sounds like a new one.
Yeah. Schnoogans? No, I think Schnoogans been around.
Schnoogans.
Yeah. UNSC Gothic Serpent? That sounds new to me. And last, but never least, we're glad to have you, Warm Apple Smiles.
Guys, I can't help but to notice that my vocal cords went unused.
Yeah, that's because he did the whole Hammerbush show. So would you like to scream to the tune of "Oh Christmas Tree, Oh Christmas Tree"?
Yeah.
That wasn't even close.
I got the cat.
Fun little jingle there.
I got the cat on me. I don't want to scare the cat.
Yeah.
Because I know I'd scare the cat because I put my body and soul into those. Yes.
We have a letter. It's addressed to us.
We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from. Does it not say?
I didn't expect you guys to pick up on that.
How?
Brother, I had a thinking chair.
I was gonna say, obviously, you know. I expect you to know where.
And a handy dandy notebook.
I didn't expect you guys
Came
to
with
just
a
go
big
with
crayon.
We only grew up during the same era.
It is him. You were right. Hey, everyone. Sorry I haven't sent a letter in a while. I just forgot to. So in school the other day, I had to type out an essay thing. I had 6 options of what I could type out, and the one I chose involved talking about a personal experience. It had to be detailed and at least contain 300 words. The following is what I typed from my essay.
Oh, boy.
We're going to read his essay.
Also, I'm showing my parents and sister the video version of this so they can see what you guys look like. So say hello to them. Hey.
Hi, letter person's parents.
It's just the PS. The PS is all that I can. That, just to clarify. It's only because,
you know, I am a dull creature. What does PS stand for?
Per se.
I don't think that's what it stands for.
I know what it is. I'm bothered. Hold on.
He's bothered.
I feel like it's got to be like
I
post
feel like
something.
since post send. No, post speak.
Send.
Post speak. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Postscript.
I was close.
Yes.
I was close.
Okay.
I knew post had to be the.
I had never considered the fact that PS stood for something. I've always just taken it.
Hold on. Let me see this. Let me see his formatting.
As a kid, I have a
It's formatting. You're gonna grade the paper.
I'm gonna grade the
I have
paper.
a funny
What
story
is
about
this
PS.
You need to indent your paragraphs.
Oh my
God.
Looks like you never hit tab on anything.
How to become the most disliked person on the podcast is doing what you're doing.
You should be using. If this is for English, you should be using MLA format.
Oh my God.
Dude, MLA is not always the standard.
I use APA.
I was gonna say, or APA, depending. APA is definitely more common and more used in real life.
Just type the paper. Who needs formatting?
most colleges.
Well, they're wrong.
Okay, so grade.
Every college, actually.
Yes.
Grade.
I didn't. I mean, you have to read it first.
No, I'm saying. Oh, you're actually gonna.
I'm gonna.
okay.
Yes.
Until the end.
I'm gonna
Okay,
grade his
got you.
essay. I'm not a teacher.
All right, so
I am a teacher, but I am a PE teacher. I want
yeah.
to be a PE teacher, so my grading in English ain't the
as long as they're
greatest.
physically successful.
Yes. If he's in good health, that's all that matters.
Now, I've always said, and I live by this, the first and last sentence of every book is the most important. I like to read the first sentences of books in the bookstore before I buy them. And if they don't grab me, I don't buy it. Unless it's Halo. So, have you ever taken a needle around to the face? Sold.
It's a way to grab your reader's attention.
This is perfect. Lowercase w after the punctuation. Well, I have straight through my visor. What?
Cat?
Multiple times, right? That's not writing the perspective of Cat here. Why is that important? Because it relates to what I'm about to tell you. This is about an experience so unique, none will be able to relate to it. Great book.
This is a great book already.
What I am about to tell you will rattle you so badly you may want to stop reading before we begin down this long road.
I'm not sure if I'm ready, Austin.
Just hold the cat.
I got the cat.
I had recently been added on Xbox by a guy named Austin Murphy. Glad I'm just going to get my full state ID out there.
I know that guy.
One of the 4 hosts of the library, a Halo Lorecast. I had never considered adding a Halo Lorecast, it's just Halo Lorecast. Honestly, that format's better.
See, now there are at least 2 people who have mentioned the library Halo Lorecast in an essay.
What was the first one?
Because I did.
Oh, yeah.
That I did.
I had to do a whole analysis thing. It was fun.
It was entertaining. Austin was in the lobby on Halo Infinite, so I hopped on and joined his fire team. This is straight up a story. This is wild. I sat there in the lobby for a bit, but he was just sitting in the menus, so I walked away for a moment and ate a pack of crackers in our kitchen. I had only 2 crackers left when I decided to head back and see what was going on. I noticed that somebody else had joined our fire team. It was Shane, another host from the library. We were definitely about to play doubles or ranked or something.
100%.
His armor was black and red. He wore the armor of Emil from Halo Reach. Yeah.
Who else?
And it seemed as if his Spartan were saying, just give me a reason to crack your skull.
He said the thing.
I'm honestly not exactly
Just give me a reason to prime Shano.
It doesn't roll off the tongue nearly as well.
No, it does not.
This happened a bit ago.
I'm still so sad you couldn't get cracked.
No, I could. It had a bunch of random numbers. I tried a bunch of different variations. It just didn't happen.
So sad.
It was upsetting.
Pure excitement was all I had, and the thought of getting to play with 2 hosts from the library rushing through my brain. There was a chat notification. I know this is going to be sad. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Oh, no. I already know where this is going.
We've been training for a ranked game for a long time, so I know that I had to say get out.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
No. I can feel this is bad. There was a chat notification on my screen. I opened my chat to see a message from Austin. He was telling me about how he had a tournament coming up on Saturday and how he needed to get some rounds in for practice. We did win.
They did win.
We did win.
I watched.
And I think this actually might just be my winnings. So we'll have to find out. He was telling, okay, I'll hop out, I replied. I jumped out and shut down my Xbox for the night and headed back to finish the pack of crackers. The rest of the night seemed to be boring after that.
You ruined his night.
You ruined his night.
I'm sorry.
Why couldn't he practice with you?
I don't think he would have been able to get into the matches with us.
Monster.
Monster.
Because I think it wouldn't even let him. The next day when I returned to my Xbox, I went into Halo Infinite and watched the replay of one of the ranked rounds Austin and Shamron. It was beautiful. The way Austin slaughtered every person with his pinpoint accuracy. I watched as the bodies of many man, you're going hard at as hell for no reason. Of many fell before him, and he reigned supreme in the ring. He was literally painting the walls red with the blood of his victims. Every time he pulled that trigger, I knew that someone was fixing to die. This man was unstoppable. He's still going. It was as if the map was his canvas. He was the painter. The body's his paint. And his bandit EVO, his brush. I thought to myself that I could do what he did. I could be just as powerful. I could become better than him. This is the plot of Incredibles. It's just the plot of
You have your own Incrediboy.
Never
You're not
trust your
affiliated with me.
heroes. You're not affiliated with me. Say the lobby before he kicks my ass. Selecting the ranked Slayer mode, I noticed I had to do 5 placement matches before it pushed me into the main system. I thought it would be easy the first round, so I locked into a match and was transferred into the loading screen. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Yes. Right, no double-sided? Okay, cool, we're good. Nice.
Also, double space.
He didn't double space, you're right.
Double space.
Dude, this is spent, I mean, I guess
If you had to write 3 pages, you could have
Well, you would
cut your writing in half.
What if it was a word count, not
it's
a
a
page
300
count?
word count. It's a 300-page word count.
300-page word count.
300 word. It had to be detailed and at least contain 300 words.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
so-
word count. Got it.
Yeah.
So who cares about spacing with word count?
Well, it's for ease of reading. Also, where is the running head?
I mean, up here.
Let him read. Oh my God.
And these margins are all over the place. 1 inch every side.
Once I was loaded into the match and saw that the map was cliffside, I knew it was going to be tough. Uphill battles, people sniping you from above. Your teacher is confused, by the way. And a tunnel behind the main buildings that stretched from one end of the map to the other. Maybe not so confused. Maybe they're young and they know what gaming is.
I hope the teacher's a guy that plays Halo.
Once the match began, I noticed something very frightening. Our motion trackers were disabled, and I was only armed with the bandit rifle. The kill total we had to reach was 50 kills. Not too difficult, but I knew it was going to be a struggle to obtain that many kills on a map like this and only equipped with 1 weapon.
So they just started.
The fighting was intense, and we were in the lead, so I felt even more adrenaline because of it. Suddenly, we were flanked by 3 of them from above. I watched in horror as my squad fell one by one.
No.
I managed to find cover behind a wall as they slaughtered the last of my squad. I knew it would be a bit before they all respawned, so I headed below into the lower part of one of the buildings. I managed to obtain a needler while I was heading down through one of the corridors. Once I reached the bottom, I hid in the very back of the room with my back to the wall and my weapon facing the door. The room was dark and metallic. The only light was that of the red glow of the dimly lit lights on the walls. I sat quietly as I listened intently to the sounds of footsteps above me. This is why having a motion tracker is so important. I had no idea if it was a hostile or friendly. The enemy's kill count crept into the late 30s while our team stayed close behind. The sounds of the footsteps seemed to be getting closer. I felt my grip on the controller tighten as I prepared to open fire. The footsteps were more quiet now as they got closer and closer to the door until suddenly there was a silence. I took a step forward, needler at the ready. The door began to hiss as it slowly unlocked. I zoomed in on my needler as I took another step forwards. The door finally opened and the Spartan took a step inside. Right as I fired the needler, 3 needler rounds flew right by their head and hit the wall. I ceased fire when I realized it was one of my squad mates. He walked right towards me and then gestured toward the door. Come on, let's finish the fight. Come on, let's finish the fight. He seemed to say.
He seemed to say. That's kind of what I got from his facial expression.
But underneath that visor, really hard to tell. We both headed out the door and into the hell that awaited us. Wart, wart, wart. All caps. It's just wart, wart, wart.
Nice. Spacing roll.
Did you cite that quote?
Hold on, let me check the final page. No references.
What a shame.
Parenthesis. Sanghili et al. Comma.
Sanghili et al.
2024.
Once we had gotten into the safe position inside of a building, I took a second to survey my surroundings, checking for any possible hostiles. My squad mate pinged something about 100 yards from our position. 100 yards.
Oh, that's a lot of yards.
That's a lot of yards from our position.
A lot of yards.
I thought they used meters.
Thanks. Aren't they basically the same?
Like there's about
Pretty
that
close,
much of a difference
but
between the two.
Here's the thing. 1 yard, 1 meter, about the same. 8,000 yards and 8,000 meters, there's actually a big difference now.
That's fair. My squad mate ping something about 100 yards from our position. I turned and saw 3 hostiles up on the top of the building. One was equipped with an S7 sniper, while the other 2 were using their bandit rifles. One of our squad mates were below them and were getting picked off. We rushed over to the building as quick as we could. When we got close to them, we stopped running and began just creeping up on the ramp to the top of the building. Gunfire pounded in my ears. Turn down your headset. As we get closer and closer to the top of the building, their backs were turned to us. I turned back to make sure my buddy was behind me. He pulled out the CQ S48 Bulldog and began to rush them. The sniper was the first of the 3 to fall. The other 2 quickly swung around and began firing at us, but it was useless because of the bandit rifle is terrible in close quarters combat.
Yeah.
I fired at one with my needler and landed a few shots. The other came at me and I spun around and punched him right off the top of the building, killing him in the process. The other guy from before proceeded to attack me, but my squad mate made short work of the son of a gun with that bulldog of his. We then regrouped with the others and continued the fight for victory. The fighting seemed to become more intense as we neared the end of the road to victory. I fell many times, but each time I returned, the deaths of those who killed me quickly followed suit. One time I was fighting somebody next to a ledge and I made quick work of them, but one of their squad mates came out of nowhere and hit me hard with needler rounds. As I ran for cover, it was as if I could feel the needler rounds pierce through my back into my flesh, blood running down the wounds down my back, causing a massive burning sensation. Ow!
I'm adding
Ouch!
I'm adding some sound effects.
Thanks. I thought I could escape until the final round pierced my visor into my skull. I stumbled backwards and fell off the ledge into an endless void. Is there a sound for that? That's the endless void sound. Victory was at hand and the fight seemed to become easier and easier until it came to play. A friggin' M41 spanker. There it is.
Rocket Mary.
We seemed to die back to back, never getting a chance after that. They made a large hole in our strength, and the thought of victory seemed to slowly fade to black. In those moments, final moments
That's a
before
Metallica song.
Dang. In those final moments before we lost, I remember thinking about how easy Austin had made it look. How he inspired me to try and become something more than what I was. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson. Austin is way better than me at Halo.
It's okay. I think that a lot too.
and I have a lot to learn before I can ever confidently face him in battle.
I think that a lot too.
Connor, have you been the one writing these letters?
Connor, you can be honest with us.
No.
This was a story about a personal experience I had. I hope you enjoyed Smiley Face. Smiley faces are horribly unprofessional in the writing world. So I would definitely adjust that.
As he's writing his possibly favorite
I think the best I can do
podcast
is a C+.
I'll get, if he was in my class, solid.
Hey, full points for content. Losing it on format and grammatical errors.
College is tough, buddy.
Sorry.
College is tough.
They seem like pretty cool people. I like them. A+.
The PE teacher has spoken.
They say those who can't do, teach. Those who can't teach Jim.
I'll teach my children to fold you.
Just fold you.
I'll make my children monsters. Not my children, my students.
Creatine in their baby bottles.
It's okay. Connor, they're going to make you teach like a U.S. history class at some point.
That would be so fun.
Nah, I'm not licensed for that.
They can figure it out.
My friend, excellent work. I like how you were just hyping me up for a whole half of that. I want to pass off some of the kindness that you spoke about to my teammate because there was not a single word about him.
I was there.
There was a mention that Shane joined and he was excited about you joining.
And then I was forgotten about.
Nothing about your play.
I just feel like if we all joined at once, he would just explode.
We should figure that out. He's on every night as far as I'm aware, as far as I've seen.
Let's do it right now. Okay, not right now, but
my setup's like
what's in the
20 minutes
box?
from
Oh, in the box?
the box.
I don't know.
The mystery box. What's it say on the side?
On
Post
the side.
Canada.
Post Canada. Oh, it's from Canada. Oh.
Ew,
What if it's some syrup? Yay, syrup.
Dude, they loaded this thing up with poutine.
Milk in bags.
Yeah, it's just my winnings.
Oh.
But they're cool.
Oh, you just now got that?
No, I got it a while ago. I just haven't pulled it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's a fancy controller. That's very neat. And there should be. Nope. That's it.
There was supposed to be something else, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you got it, I'm going to be pissed because I didn't get it either.
Oh, it's just open.
Yeah, he had to make sure it's good.
I like it.
He had to make sure that it's in there. He had to make sure that it's functional.
we're leaving up freedom.
Freedom.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, my
Freedom.
leg is completely asleep up to like this point. My leg.
That's what that cat does.
Yeah, my whole leg is numb. In about 5 minutes from now, I'm gonna be afraid to move my leg.
My friends.
My left leg is completely numb.
My friends, thank you for joining us today. Thank you again to Matt Forbeck, who is probably not listening to this episode because he was just on it. For joining us, having a good time with us. Thank you, my friend, for writing an essay that includes me prominently. Let me know what grade you get. I'm curious. And yeah, for everybody else, we'll see you guys next week. Actually, I said that I wouldn't check, but now that we're here and Matt Forbeck is no longer in the call and I don't have to be embarrassed about it or anything like that, I will look at what the schedule is for next week. Although I probably should just start doing this ahead of time. So you see, next week is going to actually be... Connor, you're going to be so happy.
Ooh, what is it?
We're talking about the rogue AI.
Oh.
Iratus. Sorry.
Okay.
It does sound like
Well, he
fun.
said the rogue AI, and I was like, oh, not brutes? Iratus. And I'm like, oh, okay, brutes.
Yeah.
Which,
can't wait to
speaking
learn.
of, folks who are tuning in, tomorrow, Stories from Waypoint gets a whole new episode, and that episode is all about Iritus. Iritus. People say his name differently in the cutscenes. I don't know why. I was hoping that they would have. I'm wondering.
Sometimes
if
I
it's-
mean mug the camera just because.
Why? So the thing is, I don't know if it's like the audio director specifically wanted them to say his name differently because that's what people realistically do. They don't all say words the same. But also, it's like now we just don't know what his name is. Is it Iratus? Is it Eratus? Is it Iratus? Irate us?
I don't know.
Join us next week for that.
The library was produced and published by JumperScape Audio. Funding was provided by our fantastic patrons on Patreon. If you enjoy the show and wish to support JumperScape's future projects or get some sweet benefits, join our Patreon at patreon.com/JumperScape or become part of this truly special community at discord.gg/JumperScape. Thank you for your listenership, and we hope you enjoyed.